Let's do two things together in this nugget. First, let's make absolutely certain you can find the installation guides that you need for the B-Series hardware. Whether you're inserting a B-Series device in the chassis, or whether you're opening a B-Series device to upgrade the CPU or the RAM, I want to make sure you can find the exact step-by-step guidance that you need. The second thing that we're going to do in this short nugget is we're going to go ahead and give you a couple of examples of certification type questions in this area so you can see exactly how easy they are. So let's handle that documentation piece. Now, here we are up at Cisco.com, and I'm so glad that you're seeing this. I think what's happening, I'm not a web designer, but I think what's happening right now is Cisco is detecting the browser restrictions that we have in this particular machine, and notice, and particularly this particular browser, and notice that the links up top are gone. But if we scroll down at the Cisco homepage, we'll see they're presented to us down here. No problem. So we can do just what we would have done before. We can go to support, and we can go to, this time it's clearly spelled out as documentation. This brings us to that interface we love so much for finding things. And notice I'm thinking about the glass being half full here. So we love this interface for finding things. We go under servers, unified computing. We go under B-Series blade servers in this case. And let's say I want to upgrade the CPU on a particular device. We go down into install and upgrade guides. And then we would go to the particular model that we have. Let's say we're dealing with that B200 blade server that we're always talking about in this class. So here's the B200 blade server, and here is CPU replacement. And it talks about the particular options and models on the M1 and the M2, and then it's going to guide us through step by step what we need to do. Unscrew the 4 captive screws securing the heat sink to the motherboard, remove the heat sink, remove the old thermal compound from the bottom of the heat sink, unhook the socket latch, open the socket latch, remove the CPU or socket protective cover, and then we install a CPU and a heat sink. Step by step. We're going to place the CPU on the base. We're going to close the socket latch. We're going to lock the socket latch. We're going to use the tube of thermal compound that was provided with the replacement CPU in the servers to go ahead and add a protective film and then replace the heatsink. Notice, installing memory. Okay? Plenty of information on the memory install. So, excellent step-by-step guides for your hardware installation are going to be just a few mouse clicks away. And this is really something that you'd want to pay attention to. I mean, really, even if you've done plenty of hardware installs before, I'd highly recommend for your very specialized equipment here, you go up and you find and follow the appropriate step-by-step instructions. If you're a man watching this nugget, I know it's not in your nature. I know it's not in your nature to find the installation guide and follow the instructions, but please give it consideration in the UCS environment. Now, by the way, speaking of CPU replacement, it just so happens that back here on the main install and upgrade guides page that we saw a moment ago, there's actually videos covering a couple of different generations of Intel Xeon processors. So if you want to go ahead and literally watch this CPU upgrade process, you can. Let's check it out here just for a moment. So it's going to give you those same steps that we spoke of, but it's going to go ahead and give you an animated walkthrough, as we can see. So there we are removing the heatsink. There's the CPU underneath. There's that release latch. So you get the idea. Now, remember, the B-Series blade slides into a chassis, right? So please keep in mind that the chassis itself is something that we're going to want to be pulling installation guides for and carefully walking through. Let's make sure we can find those real quick. Here we are at Cisco.com. We're going to go to our support documentation. We're going to go to servers, unified computing, and this time we're going to find our chassis. So let's look down here in the available options. And we've got B series, there it is, UCS 5100 series blade server chassis. Sure enough, there's install and upgrade guides, and then we can go to the chassis installation guide. Notice there's a chapter on installing and removing components. So here's a great one, installing and removing FEXs. Now remember what the FEX is going to be considered here. This is our input-output module. We like to call it an input-output module in this course. In the documentation, they like to refer to it as a FEX. So we can go through and check out the step-by-step for the installation of the FEX. These are important things in production, and as I alluded to, these are important things for our certification exam environment as well. Now, if you're preparing for certification, go ahead and make yourself a list of step-by-steps that you want to study. Obviously, in production, you just pull the installation guide and go through the step-by-step when you need to upgrade a particular component. But from a certification perspective, let me help you make a list of step-by-steps that you would want to go and look at when preparing for the exam. For the B series itself, I would take a look at the SFP Plus transceivers, and I would know how to install and upgrade those. I would know how to do a server's hard drive. And you can just stick to the B200 as a typical device, right, when you're studying. And I would probably know how to do like the power supply inside a B series. And then when we come to the chassis itself, I would go ahead and take a look at the FEX section, that input-output module. And how about the fans? Yeah, the fans are replaceable in the chassis, so I would look that over as well. I think this list here, why not add the CPU to this list, by the way, when it comes to our B series? That's a pretty comprehensive list. I don't think in the exam environment you'd get asked something like installing a memory module, because let's face it, it's pretty easy and it follows what we've done for years on personal computers. So let's, when preparing for certification, take a look at the step-by-steps. Now, let me go ahead and present to you how we might see a question like this. It's pretty obvious how you might see a question like this in the exam. Let me show you. So if you've been around Cisco certification exams for a long time like me, you're probably thinking, this is a great opportunity for drag and drop. And yeah, absolutely, installation process questions like this are a great opportunity. Now, I think it's kind of silly. By the way, I really do, because obviously in a production environment, you're going to go in and you're going to pull up the guide like I demonstrated in this nugget. But, whatever, let's just be ready for questions like this. Now, what they'll like to do is they'll present a bunch of bogus options for the installation in your drag and drop, and there'll be like, in this case, maybe 3 steps that are actually real for the installation process, and you've got to drag the ones that are correct into the correct position. So just use logic, okay, and don't panic. The fans in the chassis, and by the way, this question is obviously talking about the installation of the fans in the chassis. The fans, those are hot swappable. So notice 2 of the options here are power down the UCS and power on something called the ICS. Don't know what that is. But yeah, we don't have to power anything. These fans are hot swappable. So these 2 options they're eliminated right away. So now it's a lot easier, right? We've got to put the 3 that we know are correct in the correct order. Listen for the fans if the chassis is powered on. That sounds to me like it would be our conclusion step. Hold the fan module with the spring latch and push the fan module into the chassis until it seats properly? Wow. So we hold it right, we push it in right, and then we listen for the fans to actually work. So there you go. What appears to be an extremely difficult question is really just not that bad. So now let's really quick check and see if we were correct. And what would we check against here? Well, we would check against the installation guide. So we said, all right, we're going to hold the fan right, we're going to push it in, then we're going to listen for it working. Let's see if we were correct. So here is our appropriate part of the documentation, and we can see here that for installing a fan module, it turns out that there are 4 steps. Well, that's interesting. Cisco decided not to test us in this example on a 4th step at all. So hold the fan module with the spring latch at the top of the module, push the fan module into the chassis until it seats properly and the spring latch snaps into place, and listen for the fans if the chassis is powered on. Wow, we did it right per the Cisco documentation. So if you are interested in Cisco certification for this topic, you've got some homework for this particular nugget, don't you? Yeah, you need to identify the installation guides that we mention in this course, maybe even download them in PDF format, and get to work. Maybe do some flashcards on the steps that you would go through in an installation in the B-Series. Don't forget the B-Series chassis. Yeah, so I decided not to go through all these step-by-step installation guides in this particular nugget because if you weren't interested in certification, you would want to kill me. Nothing worse than having someone read an installation guide to the viewer. So please, do your homework if we are tracking towards certification in this area. Well, I hope this nugget has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.